And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the world today. We'll take a look at some clips from the news, share a little bit of dialogue with those of you who are able to join us for the live portion. And if you happen to be listening somewhere else and you wanted to join the live portion, you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube on Coffee Talk and Prepper University. That's at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta, as well as Rumble now. You can find me on Rumble, and that would be Coffee Talk 2 with the number 2. Running a hair late today because of internet connectivity issues, but just squeezed it in there. Being joined today by Monkey, who you can see in the chair in the background. He's sitting in a gray chair today, so he's easier to spot. Getting ready for a nap. I'll go ahead and say hello to some of the people that have chimed in so far in the live portion. See, Brian is with us here today, as well as Helter, Dragon, Bob, Jane, Kimberly, David. Joe is here from Nebraska, says it's negative 20. And Jeff said no notification today. Figures. Indeed. And Jane is talking about Social Security, said he heard there's $72 billion in 7 years on Social Security and fraud. Could be, as we get ready to jump off here. And we will be talking about Doge, and we will be talking about, I said Dodge. We will be talking about Doge, and we will be talking about the Treasury Department, as well as Social Security. I wanted to point out something that I thought was interesting, though, before I get into that. As some of you are aware, and we talked about it briefly yesterday, and that is, of course, Saturday Night Live and their 50th anniversary. I just want to run that over really quick. And I see Bernab has joined us. Glad you make it today. There was a really, really bad performance from Paul McCartney, who was 63 and can't do it anymore and needs to just stop. And what has been described by most as being a primarily embarrassing show. Most notably, the Eddie Murphy and what's his name? Oh, what is his name? The guy from Elf, Will Ferrell and Eddie Murphy in their sketch about how great it is, 10-minute drag out, not funny at all sketch about how great it is to be in prison because you get raped every day. I'm not kidding. And also apparently David Chappelle. And I found that the reason I wanted to share this is because it really kind of points out something that most people already know about Hollywood and how all of that works. And this is from Salon. Chappelle says he was barred from touching on Gaza and transgender people on Saturday Night Live. So he says he never hesitated to touch the third rail, knowing that his unassailable craftsmanship can navigate him through plenty of thorny subjects. With that in mind, it might not be surprising Saturday Night Live gave the button-pushing comedian a list of no-nos during his recent appearance on the long-running series. Chappelle told the San Francisco crowd on February 13th, producers of the show warned him away from talking about either transgender people or Gaza. Okay? Now, here's the thing. Dave Chappelle, Mr. You Can't Tell Me What to Say, okay? That you can't tell me what to say and I'll say whatever I want and free speech and this and that, still took the contract knowing that they weren't going to allow him to talk about two subjects he often talks about. So why then did you go on the show? I guess the check was just big enough. Is that the idea? All people said, did you say Paul McCartney was 63? 83 years old. 83 years old, and yeah, he needs to just stop. And JJ is here. Thanks for joining us today. But yeah, Chappelle, and this is why I say it's important. There's an important underlying thing here with Dave Chappelle because he's always put himself out there as the guy who will say anything and doesn't believe in censorship and is anti Hollywood and this and that. But when he was going to be on Saturday Night Live, as he's just admitted just recently, they gave him a list of things he couldn't say, and he obeyed that list. Let that sink in. Let that sink in for a minute. Just making the point. Just making the point. I think I just find that fascinating. Fascinating. But yeah, it's the show is about as bad as you can possibly imagine. Anyways, they had their 50th anniversary special for a show that should have gone off the air 25 years ago. It's only on because it's on. It's become a staple. It's expected that he. It's expected that the show just be on, kind of like the Tonight Show. Tonight Show started getting away from being relevant when Johnny Carson left in the 80s, or Late Night, which hasn't been late night since Letterman quit, and so on. Indeed, it's just it's long since not been relative. And then Paul McCartney's embarrassing auto-tuned performance because he can't do it anymore, even though he's still in concert. These guys are still in concert. Kiss was, they just left. They were still in concert, but Kiss walked away finally after they got caught lip syncing. Not only were they lip syncing, but they weren't playing the instruments either. And they quit their final tour and sold their catalog. They don't even own the rights to their music anymore. Yeah, these people are all frauds. And Ozzy Osbourne now saying that he's going to get back together with Black Sabbath for one more tour. Man can't even stand up. He can't even stand. I bet you he can't sing, even though singing is the only time you can understand anything Ozzy says. When he speaks, it's intelligible. Monkey has joined us. JJ wants to know when's the last time SNL was actually funny. In the 90s. And Stacy Lynn has joined us. Indeed. It's been, I'm pretty sure, since the 90s, since it's been relevant. And it went way left. It took a drastic turn and just got really bad. Got really, really bad. And now it's full of just really raunchy adolescent attempts at humor. Like I had said, the Will Ferrell and Eddie Murphy in prison, this take on a parody on the Scared Straight. You all remember Scared Straight, I'm sure. But they're talking about how great prison is, including how often you get assaulted because, as Will Ferrell put it in the one clip that I saw, oh, I could never get laid. Now I get it 50 or 60 times a day. Okay, that's great. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? How's the audio visual quality doing? Because the internet has just been reset, and that's why I believe, about a minute late getting on. About a minute late. I wasn't sure if I was going to get on at all today, but the internet has been reset now as we get ready to dig in here. But yeah, I mean, I don't have to tell you guys. Saturday Night Live's not funny anymore. South Park, not funny anymore. A lot of these shows, late night and the Tonight Show, these are shows that should have been off the air years, if not decades ago. But they just keep them on. They just keep them on. Bob says 5x5. Thank you. So we may as well start digging in to Doge. New York Post article coming up here. Anytime now, Restream. It says Doge says that it has now recovered 1.9 billion in taxpayer funds that was misplaced by the Biden administration. Department of Government Efficiency announced Friday that it recovered nearly 2 billion in funds misplaced by the Biden administration. Yeah, I bet it was. The massive trove belonged to the Department of Housing and Urban Development and was discovered a day after HUD Secretary Scott Turner launched a Doge task force at his agency. 1.9 billion of HUD money was just recovered after being misplaced during the Biden administration due to a broken process, according to Doge. A broken process that I'm sure that the secretary shown here, Scott Turner, knew all about it. But of course, he wants to be a team player because he wants to keep his job. And he knew they were coming, so he was like, yeah, sure, we'll have a Doge task force at the office. That'd be a great idea, Mr. Musk. And suddenly turned up $2 billion that was misplaced because of some technical error. Quote, these funds were earmarked for the administration of financial services, but were no longer needed. And you just kind of forgot about it, I guess. The cost-cutting group led by Elon said it worked together with Turner to fix these issues and de-obligated the funds, which are now available for other use, by the Treasury. It's astounding how much taxpayer money can be saved with even a small amount of effort, Musk wrote on X. The contracts were earmarked for Carrington Mortgage Services and Celine Finance in August of 2019 and would have paid out $751,221,224.87, as well as an additional $836,689,235.84. That's very, very specific. Turner, a former NFL cornerback turned Dallas housing developer, was confirmed by the Senate to lead HUD last week. we will be very detailed and deliberate about every dollar spent in serving tribal, rural, and urban communities across America, he said on Thursday. Aha! With President Trump's leadership, business as usual, the status quo is no longer the posture that we will take, Turner added. And with the help of Doge, we will identify and eliminate all waste, fraud, and abuse. Okay, so Turner is the new guy on the block. I see. He's the new guy on the block. So there we go. And there, JJ said, were those funds misplaced into Hunter's account? Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it's been sitting there since 2019. Almost $2 billion since 2019, and nobody noticed that account was there. Nobody knew it. Nobody knew about that slush fund just sitting there that didn't get allocated. Sure. Incredible. And I'll put that up from all people talking about a funny parody he remembers from SNL. I don't think it's been funny since they started calling it SNL instead of Live. When everything got abbreviated, this changed. International House of Pancakes became IHOP, and Kentucky Fried Chicken became KFC. McDonald's was Mickey D's. We went through this period in the mid 90s where they started abbreviating everything, and then the quality went down. It seems. Let me see. Jane says the staff let go called human resources. And there's Lucky. Lucky joined us here today. Monkey says, before even Doge was a thing, is it by chance this is TDS Elon derangement syndrome in play? Do they like corruption and wasting tax money, or both? Yeah, there's something about the party, and I've mentioned this several times, and it refers primarily to the Democrat Party, that I read stories all the time in the podcast about corruption. Politicians or other lawmakers or other people that are connected with state, federal, or local governments that are stealing, misusing, misappropriating funds. And 99 out of 100 stories, they're Democrat affiliated. There's just something about that party that attracts these people. It attracts that denomination of people that are just openly corrupt, and they've been getting away with it. I mean, you get caught. The small people, the underdogs, get caught here, there, and everywhere. But we catch a few people. But now this is a larger, deeper net that's being thrown out, and a lot of people are walking away. A lot of people are walking away. Monkey says, all I ask is, do some people not like reducing taxpayers and government waste spending? And JJ said regarding SNL, I got a fever, and the only cure is more cowbell. See, you're going back to the '90s there, and that's what is his name? The actor that was into Live and Die in L.A. I can't think of his name. Pepper wants to know when prices are going down. Give it a chance. It's been like 3 weeks. It's been like 3 weeks. We'll see. We'll see. Because it's not going to happen in a heartbeat. It's not going to happen in a heartbeat. New York Post article, and this is the big one. Doge discovers $4.7 trillion in treasury payments were missing critical codes, which means the traceability is almost impossible. So, Department of Government Efficiency announced Monday that some 4.7 trillion in payments from the Treasury Department were missing a critical tracking code, which made tracking those transactions almost impossible. The transactions were reportedly missing the Treasury account symbol, or TAS, which is an identification code that links a Treasury payment to a budget line item, according to Doge, which describes the use of such code as a standard financial process. I mean, everything you do gets a number, but apparently 4.7 trillion worth of transactions at the Treasury did not get a number assigned. Anything you do with your credit card, your bank, your debit card, you get a paycheck, everyth's got a number attached, but these did not. In the federal government, the TAS field was optional for 4.7 trillion in payments and was often left blank, making traceability almost impossible. The Elon Musk-led project to curb waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government said, in light of the discovery, use of the TAS code will now be mandatory. It should have been anyways. That's your tax dollars. They don't want to trace where it's going. And now, if you can't trace where it's going, not only do you not know what it was spent on, but if it was spent on anything illegal or shady or crooked or questionable, they can't claw it back because they don't know where the hell it is. As of Saturday, this is now a required field, increasing insight into where money is actually going. Musk touted the change as a major improvement in Treasury payment integrity. But again, this is something that banks have been doing for years. For years. Treasury Department doesn't have to do it. It's optional. That sounds very suspicious. This was a combined effort of Doge and the Treasury and the Federal Reserve. The Treasury Department, which facilitates trillions of dollars worth of government payments every year, was one of the first agencies Doge embedded itself into after Trump's inauguration. Doge staffers at the Treasury have been granted access to the department's highly sensitive payment systems in an effort to root out waste, fraud, and abuse, which they tried to block with court orders, which were overturned, and several chiefs of staff quit and walked away, probably trying to get ahead of any investigations because they were afraid they were going to get sucked down into it. And yeah, here, Kimberly and all people, Christopher Walken. I couldn't think of the name. Christopher Walken. Did you ever see? I know you all saw him in Spider-Man, but did you ever see him in? That was him in To Live and Die in L.A., right? No, that wasn't him. That was Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe was in To Live and Die in L.A. Christopher Walken was in The Deer Hunter. All People says, is it true Dodge has found Social Security records of accounts for millions of living citizens that are listed as between ages of 100 and 179? The highest number that I've heard is 159, that they would technically be 159 years old. And the claim is, and we'll get into that in a little bit here, that there are more active Social Security numbers than there are people alive in the United States, which doesn't make any sense. They should be, if they're deceased, they should be deactivated. My wife actually speculated on that. She said, I bet you a lot of that might be nursing homes committing fraud and not reporting properly that somebody was deceased. Because if you commit someone to a nursing home, the nursing home takes over any Social Security or Medicaid payments. You don't get the money anymore. That person doesn't get the money anymore. The nursing home does. So there could be massive nursing home fraud connected to some of that. That's a pretty logical assessment. James is here, says better late than never. And it's snowing in Western New York. Okay. Thank you, James, for joining us. Jericho says he saw someone saying stepping down doesn't protect from legal liability. No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. But a lot of people want to walk away when Doge walks in the door. It's funny. And Kimberly said he was also in Pulp Fiction. That's right. In Pulp Fiction, he was kind of doing a reenactment of the Deer Hunter, even though in the Deer Hunter he committed suicide. Oh, I said that. I said the S word again. I'm going to get in trouble. Monkey says he saw it goes up to 200 to 300 years old. The highest number I've heard is 159. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if there were numbers that were that crazy. I'll read a couple more comments here and then we'll get back into this. Nature Nerd says, insane how many corrupt judges there are. They have too much power and are working to keep corruption in the government. An Armored Ghost says, does the Democrat Party take the mantle for most corrupt group in history yet? They should. They should. Because, like I said, as I alluded to earlier on, whenever I read these stories, corrupt politicians, mayor so-and-so indicted for this, town alderman arrested for that, such and such CEO of a charity, whatever the hell it is, senator so-and-so, representative so-and-so. Whenever I read these, 99 out of 100 stories, it's going to be a Democrat lawmaker. And it's not that Republicans are so far above reproach. There's crooked ones, I'm sure. But for some reason, the ones that are in the Democrat Party seem to be worse. It seems to be worse. Raccoon says, how do you cash a check that doesn't have your name on it? Well, it gets transferred because it's all digital now anyways. But they've been doing that forever. Nursing homes have been doing that for decades. The earliest examples I've seen of nursing homes doing that goes back to at least the early 70s. So if you're collecting a Social Security, Medicaid, retirement check, or whatever, you get dumped in a nursing home, they take over those payments and they become the power of attorney over you. And the check goes to the nursing home instead of the individual on the individual's behalf. So by proxy. And Drubal has joined us. Glad you could make it. But yeah, and that's what my wife was suggesting, that if and I'll put that up from Jane, that if you have a nursing home that's shady, a bit on the shady side, and they had people bumped off, they died in their sleep or whatever, that they may not properly report it and still collect the check for who knows how long. A few extra months, a few extra years, whatever. And that's just, that wouldn't surprise me. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Let me see, as we catch up here, finish off some roving band. This is methodical and it's going to yield big savings, according to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Oh, is that the new secretary? Did the old one quit? Doge recently proposed deleting paper checks at the Treasury, arguing it would save taxpayers $750 million a year. The initiative noted that the Treasury Department must keep a physical lockbox to collect more than 100 million checks it processes every year, which costs about $2.40 per check to maintain. And it goes on to say in 2023, some $25 billion in tax refunds were delayed or lost due to returned or expired checks, according to Doge. Yeah. So there you go. There you go. And Nature Nerd says Biden administration sure knows how to misplace $1 billion, $1 billion here and there. Such a rounding error to Ukraine, for example. Exactly. And Kimberly says that's going to open a big can of worms with the nursing homes. I would look into it. I think that was a pretty clever point that she made there, talking about the possibility that nursing homes might be committing fraud. It wouldn't surprise me. Hell, hospitals do it. Hospitals do that crap all the time. I've read a lot of stories about hospitals, especially children's hospitals, ripping off Medicaid and other forms of medical welfare payments for children and for elderly. But mostly, a lot of the ones I've seen were for children's hospitals, ripping people off, cheating people. Children's Hospital in Boston was in trouble for it all the time. Millions of dollars that they would have to pay back for treatments that were either unnecessary or that never even took place, being charged to the Department of Public Welfare. And it's one of the biggest children's hospitals in the country, if not the biggest Children's Hospital of Boston. It's a huge network of hospitals. And it's, that fraud, it buckles down into my own personal experience as well, because they did that to me when I was 7 years old. And that was Kennedy Memorial Hospital in Brighton, which is a subsidiary of Children's Hospital of Boston. And they admitted me. I was in there for 2 weeks when I was like 7 years old, wanting to check on me for my kidneys because of a urinalysis. And then my sister, they put her in there for being underweight, and they held on to her for a couple of weeks. And of course, my mother was on welfare, so it was the state paying for it. And then they tried to do the same thing to my oldest boy, because my first ex took him to Kennedy Memorial Hospital, and they said he was underweight and wanted to admit him. And I was like, wow, that sounds really freaking familiar. And I went and I got his records. They wanted him to be admitted on Monday. And I went Friday and I pulled his records. This is back in the early 90s. I pulled his records and took him and went to St. Elizabeth's Hospital outpatient and had him seen by a pediatrician. I just explained the whole thing because I didn't have an appointment or anything. I said, hey, listen, Kennedy Memorial says such and such, and I just want a second opinion. And pediatrician checked him out and was like, there's nothing wrong with him. He's low on the scale, but he's within guidelines. He doesn't need to be hospitalized. That's a load of crap. Don't do it. Don't bring him. And I didn't bring him. And then Tuesday, social workers were at our door. And because Kennedy reported us for not bringing him in. And I had the paperwork from St. Elizabeth's Hospital, though, to show, hey, look, I went for a second opinion. Call Dr. So-and-so, I can't remember her name, and ask her. And they let it go and they never followed it up. So hospitals do that kind of crap all the time. Hospitals do that all the time. All People says your wife made a really good point about the nursing homes. And Hasdrubal says it cost Ireland €1 billion to house illegals last year alone. Ireland, and they don't want nobody up there. I know Ireland does not. The people are not wanting to embrace more weird cultures pouring over their borders and diluting the traditional Irish culture. Incredible. And Brian says sound and video are out of sync. As long as you can hear me clearly, I'll take it. I'll take it. If I could be heard clearly without a tinniness or a reverb or some weirdness, okay, I'll take it. And let me see. Jane says hospitals do all kinds of fraudulent things: double bill labs, visits, insurance, and give patients extra diagnosis to get state funds and keep you a bit longer. And just recently, and you've heard the story before, most of you, my mother-in-law hospitalized last year from the nursing home. They had to transfer her to the hospital, and they kept her in there for a month. Ran every test but the right one. The test they should have done first, they did last, which was the MRI, because she had previously had strokes. Okay, previously had strokes, and they kept her in there for a month. And really, what they were doing was waiting for the insurance to rotate, because the insurance card, which was the I forget, it was Medicaid or Medicare, I forget, was going to rotate like November 1st. I think it was November 1st. So they kept her in there until like a couple of days before, and then sent her back to the nursing home, and they charged the Medicaid over $150,000. And she could have been back to the nursing home at least 2 weeks earlier. At least 2 weeks earlier. And they just basically milked the insurance company. That's your money. She didn't need to be there, and you can't tell the doctor, oh, well, you know what? Screw that. Take her out and put her back in the nursing home. They're not going to do it, and they don't have to. You have less rights under medical care like that than you think. As Drupal says, the average Irish citizen knows we are being ignored. Of course you are. Your government's running you over. It's a shame. Hey, most governments. As we jump back into the news here real quick and following along the same lines, it says New York Post again, acting head of Social Security Administration resigns after a dispute with Elon Musk's Doge. I bet she did. Another one bites the dust. And I think she's been in there for like 30 years. 30 years as the director. And suddenly Doge shows up and she wants to quit. Suspicious, you think? Getting into the article. The Social Security Administration's acting commissioner reportedly resigned over the weekend after a dispute with the Department of Government Efficiency over the Musk-headed group's efforts to access sensitive government records. If they have authorization, they've got authorization, whether you like it or not. Michelle King, a career federal worker who had been with the Social Security Administration since 1994, quit over the Doge disagreement Saturday and was replaced by Leland Dudek. Dudek, who has been supportive of Doge's efforts to root out waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government, will serve as the acting commissioner of the Social Security Administration until Trump's pick to lead the agency. Frank Bisignato is confirmed by the Senate, according to the outlet. And this is King. Hold on a second. Do they have an updated photo of this woman? Michelle King. You can't tell me that after working at the Social Security Administration that she still looks like that after 30 years. After 30 years. She don't look like that no more. That's either really airbrushed or that's the photo that she took when she first started working there. Yeah, and Soulful Me says that's a good point about the nursing home. Yes, indeed. It says Doge staffers embedded at Social Security reportedly sought access to sensitive files in the same manner they have at other federal agencies, which is what they've been hired to do, or, tasked to do, I should say, since Musk isn't getting paid, reportedly. Such as the Treasury Department, who also quit, since Trump established the cost-cutting initiative. SSA, which manages Social Security payments for more than 70 million Americans, holds troves of personal data. And as I pointed out yesterday, so did PayPal when Musk owned that. And as far as sensitive data, I could get, if I had the money to buy it, I could get more money, or excuse me, more information, flat out buying what I want to know about you, either from your cell phone provider or from your local DMV. Department of Motor Vehicles sells information all the time to data miners. So do the cell phone companies. So does your cable provider. So does your internet provider. They're all doing it. Social Security Administration probably has less information about you than your cell phone provider does. Probably has less information about you than your cable provider does. Hell, your cable provider is spying on you. God forbid you got something like Alexa in your home and you say you're just talking randomly to somebody and suddenly it's pulling up information and trying to put it on your TV and cast it. Here's what I found. No one was talking to you, you damn spy. The agency has a list of every Social Security number that has ever been issued, as well as work and pay history and banking information for millions of Americans. And again, you could get that from your cell phone provider. Social Security also keeps the medical records of Americans who have applied for disability. It's unclear what specific information sought by Doge led to King's resignation. That's what I'd like to know, because all they want to know basically is whether or not the people that are receiving payments still exist or exist at all. Are they still alive? Did they die 60 years ago? Who's getting those checks? That's what they're trying to find out, because they're looking for fraud. They're looking for fraud. Indeed. As I try to catch up a couple of comments here. All People says, I hope the federal workers that have robbed U.S. citizens will somehow, some way get no government retirement pension plans. And Hasdrubal, talking to someone else there. Nature Nerd says home care taker jobs are also corrupt because it's a job that is exempt from taxes. As we move around here, it goes on to say King's resignation comes as Doge has recently been scrutinizing alleged Social Security fraud, claiming to have found instances of 150-year-old people collecting Social Security benefits and suspiciously rich federal workers who he thinks are self-dealing. Musk turned special government employee expressed disbelief on Sunday after uncovering that 20 million people are listed in the Social Security database as over the age of 100 years old. Quote, this might be the biggest fraud in history. Social Security pays out $1.5 trillion in Social Security benefits annually, and that's just the benefits. That's not medical or SSI or anything else that falls under Social Security. That number gets a lot bigger when you spread it out like that. Trump also has reassured people he'll not be cutting Social Security benefits for seniors. Because it's supposed to be going. You can't tell me this is still Kim. I'm wondering if there is an updated photo. They're being very generous here. I want to see if there's an updated photo of Kim, because that can't be how she looks after. She's got to be in her 60s. I don't know. And that seems to be the only photo that's available. I went and looked it up on the internet, and that's all I could find is that same photograph, like a few versions of that same photograph. Yeah, that's airbrushed. That's her glamour shots photo for when she took 1994. Armored and Country Living has joined us. Glad you could make it today. Armored says close the EPA, DOE, ATF, FBI, DEA, hey, CIA, IRS. Please pile them on, because they're all stealing. Monkey, you left the room? Monkey's not in the chair anymore. He must have left. He must have left. But what she's doing, it doesn't surprise me. Woman, I mean, 30 years of the job, and she decides suddenly she's going to quit when Doge shows up. That's very suspicious. They did the same thing at the Treasury. They've been doing this all over the place. Running away, which is what this article suggests, and that is a Daily Caller article. It says bureaucrat paranoia reaches new levels as feds take drastic steps to avoid Doge surveillance. Trump administration's goal to eliminate wasteful programs and unnecessary government positions has sent Washington bureaucrats into a panic. Government employees are reportedly plagued with anxiety over the Department of Government Efficiency's access to various computer systems, fearing surveillance of their communications. Well, if you're communicating on the government taxpayer dime, we should know what you're doing. That's the whole point of this. Government employees, I read that. Some employees are paranoid that their conversations, emails, or texts could be surveilled, with some purchasing Faraday bags to block electromagnetic signals and inhibit potential surveillance, according to CNN. That's funny. Also, when you take a job like that, any government equipment that you're using for any type of communication technically belongs to that service anyways. Just like any other job. Any job you work, if they assign you a cell phone, my wife has an assigned cell phone that's separate from her personal one that they gave to her. Stupid iPhone. What a piece of junk. That thing is really complicated. Just saying. Any calls that she makes or receives or texts or emails that she does through that phone have to be strictly business related. And if she goes outside of that, they can track that. So why can't we do that in government? Country says all of a sudden it's a great time for these people to retire. And Soulful Me said the funeral home usually reports to Social Security Department, so nursing homes can't be the cause of something. And something tells me Elon is lying. I just read up on this. Okay. And Armored says federal bureaucrat taking her benefits and pension while she can. It says one employee at the General Services Administration responsible for government procurement said they no longer carry a work phone outside of the office. Oh yeah, you're leaving it in the office? What are you using your work phone that's not business related that you don't want anyone listening to? Quote, I used to carry my work phone around with me everywhere after hours on the weekend in case anything was needed. Now I won't take it out of my office. So now you're not going to do your job. Okay. The GSA stated it does not plan to surveil its employees, however noted. Another employee at the Department of Veteran Affairs said they are leery about using a personal phone when it's connected to the office Wi-Fi and are considering covering up their computer camera. Well, people have been telling you to cover your computer's camera for years. Even Zuckerberg covers his computer camera. We all remember that famous interview where he had a piece of electrical tape over his computer's camera. Oh my goodness. It says there is a persistent feeling that we're being watched. A federal employee in Nevada expressed caution about the words used in Microsoft Teams messages and avoids terms that could stand out to artificial intelligence. We all should be doing that. Another employee at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration told CNN scientists were encouraged by their leaders to take meeting notes in offline programs instead of Google Documents. I don't trust Google Documents anyways because it clouds everything. And if you're clouding it, it's not yours. But again, if these people are only doing work and office related things with their electronic equipment, then why would they be worried about anyone checking up on it? If you're using your office phone for all kinds of personal calls, that's a conflict of interest. If you're sending and receiving inappropriate things through your office email account, that's a cause for concern. But if you're only doing business related things, like my wife only communicates through her job with that phone, she never uses it for personal. She has a company vehicle. She keeps the company vehicle parked on company property, drives her vehicle to the job site, and switches vehicles so that she's not ever using the company vehicle for anything that could be construed as personal. Because most companies check up on shit like this. But for some reason, government doesn't. And again, that's your money. That's your money. Monkey says YouTube is censoring me, but look at Zillow. Look on Zillow. Look on Zillow. Armid said rats are fleeing. Yeah, rats get off the sinking ship first, and they swim away. Where do they go? I have no idea. Hopefully all of our fleeing rats will drown. I'm not upset about this. Yeah, I'm not upset about this. I mean, these people are sitting here, and it's like, yeah, if you've got office equipment, if you have a work phone, a work laptop computer, anything like that, a touch screen that you use, email, phone, whatever, it should only be used for work-related functions. What are you worried about? If you've been honest about that, use your own personal phone for personal things. Incredible. And they're upset about this. They're paranoid about it. They're upset. They're fleeing. They're running away, crying about it to CNN. What are you afraid of? You're afraid you're going to get caught? These are the guys that are taking the buyout, which, like I said, as of, I believe, yesterday, it was over 75,000 government employees now saying that have signed on for the government buyout program to take that fast nickel and just resign. What are you running from? If you are efficient in doing your job properly and haven't done anything shady, that when they come around and they do their investigations, you got nothing to worry about. But all these people want to bail. Nature Nerd says taxpayer jobs have to be surveyed. How many tens of hundreds of thousands of employees are stealing tax money? God knows. God knows, or even just abusing the system. Just abusing the system as it is. Because why not? We'll pull up the clock again. USDebtClock.org to see where the newest entry is at. And there is the Doge clock right here, which is currently at $109 billion in savings and counting up. 109,881,000,000 and rapidly increasing. And again, the goal here was to hit $1 trillion by the end of December. It looks like they're going to do it. And that's what this is all about. You'll like or hate Trump, like or hate Musk. This is what's supposed to happen. Kimberly says, at Sam's Club, the management wanted us to download Sam's apps to us while working, such as inventory or price checks. I told them, no, they don't pay the phone bill. Yeah. Well, you're supposed to get a Telzon, aren't you? Aren't you supposed to be carrying a Telzon unit? And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, you ever see the employees that walk around with it? It looks like a cell phone. It's a little bigger than a cell phone, but it's not. It's a Telzon unit, and it's for connecting to the store's database. And it used to be like this big contraption that looked like the phone testing module that people that worked for the phone company used to carry, with all these buttons on the back and a little analog readout. And it could, back in the 90s, it had an earpiece so you could connect it to a phone, and it would send a signal similar to the kind that you used to hear on a dial-up modem. Kimberly says they don't have enough of them to go around. They've got maybe 25 in the Sam's Club. And Bob says, greetings. Do you have avian flu in the U.S. at the moment? Oh, you bet. Of course. Of course we have avian flu. I was wondering if Doge was going to hit 110 while we sat here. I'll look at it again in a moment. Since you brought it up, Bob, since you brought it up, because I've been talking about that a lot the last few weeks, because they're really, I mean, they've been hitting us over the head with avian flu all through the Biden administration. They've been burying us in it, killing chickens, killing turkeys. Now they're going to start killing cows. Here's your story. And this is a Washington Examiner article. Bird flu detected in Arizona's dairy milk supply. Oh, you know what that means? It means milk prices are going to start going up. Milk prices are going to start going up along with the eggs, because if they start knocking off the cattle. And we read the article last week, an interview with a farmer that had, he has on his farm 1,600,000 chickens, egg layers, producing 1,200,000 eggs per day. So they've got to be leghorns. But anyways, his point of why he's terrified of the USDA is because if they come out to his farm and they find one chicken with a positive test for avian flu, they will exterminate his entire flock, and he'll have to start from scratch. This is why egg prices are where they are. Because they last year they culled like 20 million of them, plus turkeys, plus ducks. And prior to that, during the C virus pandemic, when they closed down the meat packing plants, people who had meat poultry, who had hogs, who had cattle for the meat industry, had to cull their herds because they couldn't afford to keep feeding them, and they had nowhere to bring the mature animals to be processed. And that drove the prices through the roof, and it hasn't come down yet. And Hasdrubal says they got to go. Well, we're glad you could make it today. David says he's cautioned his wife about using personal phone for business use. Yeah, you can get in trouble for that. You can get in trouble for that. But here's the story. I'll go ahead and read it now since I pulled it up. It says state agriculture officials confirmed on Tuesday that a dairy farm in Maricopa County tested positive for the bird flu, Arizona's first detection of the virus in milk, which, if once it's been homogenized, if you drink it, there's no virus left. That's what the homogenization process is for. Just making the point, okay? The Arizona Department of Agriculture announced Friday it discovered the case of bird flu, avian influenza, in a routine test. I wonder if they bring that test around with them and they bullshit people to drive the prices up. Officials have placed the facility under quarantine, but the cattle have not shown any signs of sickness. You think? While the detected bird flu was found to be the D11 strain, Arizona infection is distinct from the recent D.1.1 genotype that was found in Nevada. Earlier this week, Nevada confirmed its first human case of bird flu from the same strain that killed a Louisiana man in January. I wonder if they knew each other. So, oh God, how many people were like 8 billion people on the world right now? A man died. Let's lock everybody down again. let's 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 lock everybody down again. Country says they'll find at least one just within the margin of error. Correct. And it could even be an error in testing. All people says eggs are pasteurized, which also kills the bird flu. There's no need to cull them. Milk is pasteurized. Exactly. There's nothing wrong with these animals. And again, if you, under normal circumstances, let's say you've got 1.6 million chickens, which is an abomination, but okay, let's just say you've got 1.6 million chickens in one long building laying eggs, right? And a flu sweeps through. What's the average on the flu with birds? About 7%. He might lose 7% of the flock, and the rest of the egg layers will get over it and then keep processing eggs. I'm not sure about 7%, but you know what I'm saying. You get my point. That's just natural process. And the eggs and even the meat wouldn't affect you. Even raw. You probably drink those eggs raw. I know some people do that. And your stomach will probably process it. You're not likely to catch it. Why are we disposing of all these animals? It just doesn't make sense. It just does not make sense. It's an incredible, colossal waste to do this to these animals. And Country says, how many people die of the regular flu each year do we lock down for that? Probably not that many. Let me see. How many people each year where in the U.S.? Let me just try see if I can find it in the U.S. I'll look it up real quick if I can find the data. See, and that's so vague. It's so vague. It says ranges are from 5,000 to 51,000. What the hell does that mean? What the hell does that mean? It ranges from 5 to 51. And usually only affects what really, really old, sick people, anyways. It's not very. It's not very. It sounds kind of callous, but I mean, it is what it is. Usually, if you're already sickly, that you're the one that's going to be affected. If you're already a sickly person in poor health, that's your primary target. And I'm willing to bet probably had a flu shot. I've never had one in my life. Never had a flu shot in my life. I have had the flu twice. Twice. So I was, just feel really, really lousy for a couple of days. And then your body slowly gets over it. I wasn't completely incapacitated. Obviously, I'm still here. I managed. I managed to live. You don't understand. There's only a 99.987% survival rate, man. Oh my God. I know it. Oh, I was so hoping this was going to make it. Let me share that again. The Doge the Doge clock. 109,909,000. I was hoping it would hit 110 before I was done running my mouth. No, I never had. Kimberly says no flu shots for me. I've never had a flu shot. I've not had any kind of VAX poke since like 1972, I think. Some of you may recall way back, like a year ago, I actually found and showed my childhood shot record. There's like nothing on it. There's nothing on it. But with that, we are at the top of the hour, so I will go ahead and start signing off. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find the live portion Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. On Coffee Talk and Prepper University, that's at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. Please find me there and subscribe if you don't mind. You can also find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat, where I put up a lot of memes there, stuff that I can't put on YouTube. I'll get in trouble. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. You can find me on Rumble now, Coffee Talk 2. That's Coffee Talk 2 with the number 2 on Rumble. So if you have Rumble, couldn't hurt if you don't mind. So thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. As always, hope you got something out of the conversation. And we will catch you again